Hello everyone! Welcome to our channel. For this video, we'll bring you back in time to Byzantine and Islamic civilization. Before we travel back in time, here's the outline of the topic.
And don't forget the frequently asked questions.
Be sure to fasten your seatbelt, folks! Later, in the 3rd century AD, the Roman Empire was divided into eastern and western regions. The eastern provinces thrived while the western regions were weakened by attacks of Germanic tribes. Gradually, the center of power in the empire shifted from Rome to the eastern Mediterranean. The new civilization that took shape in the east was called Byzantine civilization. A new capital is built for the Roman Empire. When the Emperor Diocletian divided the Roman Empire, he moved his imperial court to Asia Minor. A co-emperor continued to rule in Italy, but Rome was no longer the center of the empire. In AD 330, the Emperor Constantine founded a new capital city for the empire called Constantinople, on a peninsula in the Straits of the Bosphorus. This waterway is regarded as the traditional dividing line between Europe and Asia.
Byzantine civilization develops in a new empire. Constantinople became the center of the new Byzantine Empire that developed out of the Eastern Roman Empire. Its language, traditions, and Greek, and its system of law and administration was Roman. Its religion followed the beliefs and practices of the early Christian communities in the Eastern Mediterranean. Byzantine artists were influenced by Greek, Asian, and early Christian sources. Byzantine emperors considered themselves the successor of the Roman emperors and so claimed to rule all the lands that had once been part of the Roman Empire. Byzantine emperors were absolute rulers who held that God had chosen them to rule. The emperors made and unmade the laws, took charge of all foreign affairs, commanded the army and navy, and supervised trade and industry. By claiming the right to appoint the patriarch, the head of the church at Constantinople, the emperors also influenced church policy.
Justinian and Theodora lead the empire. The first great Byzantine ruler was Justinian, who reigned nearly 40 years. Justinian's most lasting achievement was in the field of law. With the decline of Rome, the Roman laws and legal system were in danger of being lost. Justinian appointed a commission of scholars to collect and organize the ancient laws and legal principles of Rome, along with major Roman writings on law. Justinian often relied on the advice of his wife Theodora. Theodora was not from the nobility but was the daughter of bear trainer in the circus. She has been an actress, a profession most people look on as degrading. When Theodora became Justinian's wife, she showed great political skill. She was influenced in lawmaking in choosing officials.
Justinian tries to restore the grandeur of Rome. Early in his reign, Byzantine forces retook North Africa, Sicily, and southern Spain from the Goths and Vandals. Later, they recaptured all of Italy, establishing a western capital of Ravenna in about 585. The Byzantine military victories were due to the superb organization of the army, which followed the Roman tradition. Byzantine generals were skilled in military strategy and understood the importance of efficient supply lines and well-built roads and bridges. Cavalry soldier, the backbone of Byzantine army. Cavalry soldiers wore steel helmets and suits of armor and were armed with sword, dagger, lance, bow and arrow.
Invaders threatened Byzantine lands. Although Justinian's conquest regained much Roman territory, the Byzantine Empire paid a high price for these victories. The long costly wars drained the treasury. Short of funds, the government neglected the defenses of its territories in the Near East and the Balkan Peninsula. Less able rulers succeeded Justinian and could not control the army. Early in the 600s, the Balkans were invaded from the north, first by Slavic tribes from lands around the Black Sea, then by Avars, a people originally from Central Asia. The Avars and Slav besieged Constantinople in 626 but could not break through the city's thick wall. From the east, the Persian attacked Syria, Palestine, and Egypt, all of which part of the empire. The Germanic Lombards conquered much of the Byzantine lands in Italy, and by 631, the Visigoths recaptured all of Spain. The Bulgars from Central Asia conquered Slavic tribes in the Balkans.
A new power threatens the Byzantine Empire. The greatest threat to the Byzantines came from the Arabs who followed the new religion of Islam. By 642, Muslim Arabs had taken Egypt, Syria, and Palestine from the Byzantium. Beginning in 673, they regularly attacked Constantinople by land and sea. However, the Byzantine defenders were aided by the new invention called Greek fire. Greek fire, a fiery explosive liquid shot from tubes. It set enemy ships afire and made blazing pools of flame on the surface of the water. Armed with this, the Byzantine ship held off the Arab ships.
Byzantium protects Christian Europe. In 717 to 718, a massive Arab naval attack on Constantinople failed. This defeat ended for a time the Muslim advances in the Eastern Mediterranean and was crucial history of Europe. If Constantinople had fallen, the Muslims would have been able to overrun the Balkans and sail up the Danube River into the heart of Europe. After this defeat and the defeat by the Franks of Tours in 732, the Muslim invaders made no more conquests in Europe.
The Byzantine and Roman churches grow apart. Even as the Muslim threat was halted, the Christian world was beginning to lose its unity. The two churches, Byzantine Empire and Western Europe, differed over ceremonies, holidays, the display of religious images, and the rite of the clergy. Western European Christians came to accept the Pope as head of all Christians, but Byzantines regarded the Patriarch of Constantinople as leader of the Eastern or Orthodox Church.
The Byzantine Empire prospers. In the West, trade, town life, and learning declined after the fall of Rome. The Byzantine Empire remained a center of wealth and culture. Constantinople grew into a magnificent city of over 500,000 people. The city's location at the crossroads of Asia and Europe helped make it as a bustling center of trade and industry as the heart of the empire. Into its markets came carpets from Persia, jewels from India and Southeast Asia, and slaves, ivory, and gold from Africa. Down the rivers of Eastern Europe came Scandinavian merchants with fur, fish, and Slavic slaves. Byzantine artisans contributed to the empire's prosperity. After traders smuggled silkworms out of China, the Byzantine developed a thriving silk industry. Byzantine learned the secret of making paper from rags.
New enemies weakened the empire. In the early 11th century, a formidable new enemy appeared. The Seljuk Turks, originally from Central Asia, had converted to Islam. In 1071, they destroyed the Byzantine army in Manzikert on the empire's eastern frontier. The Byzantine appealed to European Christians for military help in resisting the Turks. In 1204, during the Fourth Crusade, the Western European knights and Venetian merchants decided to capture the rich city of Constantinople for themselves rather than fight the Muslims. The knights wanted the city's wealth while the Venetians sought control over the rich Byzantine trade. The Crusaders devastated the Constantinople. They destroyed sacred books, vandalized churches, and carried gold, jewels, and works of art back to Western Europe. The Venetians seized islands along Constantinople's major trade routes. The Crusaders devastated the Constantinople. They destroyed sacred books, vandalized churches, and carried gold, jewels, and works of art back to Western Europe. The Venetians seized islands along Constantinople's major trade routes.
Constantinople falls to the Turks. The Byzantine Empire has been disastrously weakened. It has also faced problems of crushing taxes, decreasing agricultural production, declining trade, and loss of territory. The death blow to the empire was dealt by another group of Turks, the Ottoman Turks. Ottoman Turks accepted Islam and began to build an empire in Asia Minor and occupied most of Balkans. In 1453, the Turks attacked Constantinople, outnumbering the Byzantines 16-1. Aided by a huge cannon that fired 1,000-pound iron balls, the Turks broke down Constantinople's great walls.
The Byzantines influenced history. Byzantine scholars were studying the literature, philosophy, science, mathematics, law, and arts of ancient Greece and Rome. Byzantium was the eastern stronghold of Christianity, protecting Europe from invading Islamic armies for centuries. Orthodox missionaries carried Eastern Christianity and Byzantine culture to many Slavic people in southern and eastern Europe. Two Byzantine missionaries, Cyril and Methodius, invented an alphabet for writing the Slavic language. A form of this Cyrillic alphabet is still used in Russian and other Slavic languages.
Byzantine art blends several traditions. The Byzantine artists were influenced by both the classical Greco-Roman style and the arts of Near East. Byzantine artists were especially noted for their skill in making mosaics, design formed from thousands of small pieces of colored stone and glass. The mosaics that decorated Byzantine churches were the most brilliant use of their art forms. Another Byzantine art was the icon, a small religious image usually painted on wood. Icons was regarded as holy and were kept both in homes and Orthodox churches. Byzantine artisans also were famous for their cut gems, metalwork, and illuminated manuscript. Byzantine architecture was also distinctive. After riots and fire destroyed much of Constantinople in 532, Justinian undertook a vast program to build fortresses, monasteries, and churches. The new city cathedral, the Hagia Sophia, called the Church of Holy Wisdom, finished in 5 years.
Russia has ties with Constantinople. During the 9th century, a band of Vikings called Rus moved this area of Slavic peoples and set a string of fortified towns along major rivers. One of these forts was at Kiev. Another was at Novgorod. Viking raiders at first attacked Constantinople but later became traders. They demanded and got trading rights from the Byzantine Emperor and opened new trade routes between the Baltic and Black Sea. First, amber and slaves were the basis of the Rus trade with the Byzantines. Rus traders also brought beeswax for candles and honey for sweetening food, exchanges this for Byzantine gold, silver, and silk.
The Russian state forms around Kiev. Located on a high bluff overlooking the Dnieper River, the fortified town of Kiev became the center of the first Russian state. Its ties with the Byzantine Empire were strengthened in 957 when the Princess Olga visited Constantinople and became a Christian. In about 988, her grandson Vladimir I converted to Eastern Orthodox Christianity and all the Kievans became Christian. Land ownership counted less than control of trade. Feudalism as practiced in Western Europe was unknown. The rulers of Kiev, who had the title Grand Prince, were merchant warriors. With their aristocratic followers, called boyars, they collected tribute from their subjects and profited from the trade that linked Constantinople with the Baltic Sea.
Invaders attacked Kiev and Novgorod. Disaster struck Kiev with nomadic Mongols from Central Asia, invaded in 1237. The princes of Kiev, caught in a power struggle among themselves, were no matches of the Mongol horsemen. The other early Russian river town, Novgorod, lay farther north and escaped the Mongol destruction, although it had to send tribute payments to the Mongol rulers.
Mongols ruled Russia. Though some cities remained independent, Russia was under Mongol domination for more than 2 centuries. During this period of isolation from both Byzantium and Western Europe, there was political, economic, or cultural development. The wealth and influence of the Orthodox Church grew, for the Mongols did not interfere with the church or demand tribute from it.
The Muslim invaders who weakened and finally conquered by Byzantine Empire were followers of a new religion that began in the 7th century among the Arabs of the Arabian Peninsula. Inspired by the teachings of a remarkable leader, the armies of the new faith built an empire that stretched from Spain to India. A new civilization centered on the Muslim faith developed in these lands.
Most Arabs are nomads. The Arabian Peninsula is mainly a dry, rocky plateau, farming and village life development from springs or wells. Most of the people of Arabia were nomads called Bedouin, who spoke a Semitic language, Arabic. They lived in tribal groups, moving their tents from one oasis to another to find pasture and water for their herds of camels, goats, and sheep. The Bedouin traded with the agricultural communities of the serve as guide for the caravan trade across the peninsula. Living in a harsh desert environment led the Bedouin to prize loyalty to the tribe, valor in combat, hospitality to guests, and personal honor. One Bedouin tribe occasionally raided another tribe. Bedouin tribes also made raids on merchant caravans or the villages in the protection. There was no written law. Not all Arabs were nomads. However, towns grew up around oases and on the coast, where ocean winds brought moisture to the land. Linked by sea routes and caravan trails, some towns became centers of trade.
Arabs followed different religions. The trading town of Mecca was also a holy city. Many Arabs traveled to Mecca to worship at an ancient holy well and at a shrine called the Kaaba. The shrine contains statues of many deities as well as a black stone that Arabs believed was sacred. Most desert Arabs worship tribal gods that they believe were found in stones, the desert sun, and the sun and stars in the towns and trading centers. However, many Arabs had acquired some beliefs and traditions of Judaism and Christianity.
Muhammad establishes a new faith. Muhammad was an Arab born in Mecca about the year 570. As a young man, he took part in the caravan trade, becoming known for his honesty and good business sense. Muhammad married Khadija, a widow who ran her own prosperous business and became a successful trader. When he was 40, he believed he had a vision of the angel Gabriel who ordered him, "Recite in the name of thy Lord." Muhammad was convinced that he had been chosen to serve as a prophet and bring the Arabs a new faith.
The Quran outlines Muslim beliefs. The Quran is the holy book of Islam. Muslim believes it contains the word of Allah as it was revealed to Muhammad. They believe the Quran should not be questioned or changed. Even translations from Arabic are discouraged. Muslims believe that Islam is the completion of the beliefs of Judaism and Christianity. They regard Jesus and the Hebrew prophets are messenger of the God. But they believe that Muhammad was the last and greatest of the prophets. Muslims view Muhammad was entirely human, not divine. They worship only Allah.
Muslims have religious obligations. Muhammad insisted that men and women follow the way of Allah. Individual Muslims have 5 religious duties called the 5 pillars of Islam. 1. A Muslim must accept and repeat the statement of faith. 2. At least 5 times a day, the believer faces the holy city of Mecca in praise. 3. Muslims have a religious duty to be generous to the poor. 4. During the holy month of Ramadan, believers do not eat or drink between sunrise and sunset. 5. Muslims are expected to make at least 1 pilgrimage to the holy city of Mecca if they can afford to do so.
Muhammad flees from Mecca. Muhammad's teaching aroused great hostility in Mecca. Islam's belief in one God except thus also spoke out against rich merchants and against moneylenders who charged high interest on borrowed money. To escape persecution, Muhammad and a small band of followers left Mecca in 622 for Medina, a town about 280 miles away. Their flight is known as the Hijrah.
Islam makes converts by force. Muhammad began to preach a holy war against pagans and non-believers. Making alliances with other Bedouin tribes, he ordered his followers to raid the trading caravans from Mecca and to subdue unfriendly tribes.
Muhammad's successors extend Islamic power. After Muhammad's death, his friend Abu Bakr became his successors and was given the title of Caliph. The Caliph was regarded as the defender of the faith who was given his authority by Allah. As the political leader of the religious state, he governed in accordance with the law set forth in the Quran.
New rulers caused a division in Islam. The 4th Caliph, Ali, was married to Muhammad's daughter, Fatima. When Ali was murdered in 661, a member of the powerful Umayyad family claimed the caliphate. Rivalry broke out between the Umayyad supporters and the Shia, those who thought that only direct descendants of the Prophet should rule.
The Umayyads create an empire. With the support of the Muslim majority, the Umayyads ruled from 661 to 750 and made widespread conquests. Islam's territory in the east extended into India and to the borders of China. The Muslims' advance into southern Europe was stopped in 718 by the Byzantine defenders of Constantinople. The Umayyad rulers moved the Muslim capital to Damascus, Syria. Arab Muslims, however, still held the most position in the government.
Umayyads' rule continues in Moorish Spain. When the Umayyads rulers were overthrown, one surviving member of the family fled to Muslim Spain. By 756, he ruled most of the Iberian Peninsula. Moorish Spain, like other centers of Islamic culture, flourished while the rest of Europe was struggling with the hardships of the early Middle Ages. By the 10th century, Cordoba, the Moorish capital, was a center of learning arts and scholarship, rivaling the port of Baghdad. Toledo, Seville, and Granada were also rich, thriving cities. Agriculture, industry, and trade prospered in Spain.
The Muslim expanded trade. Muslim conquest greatly stimulated trade and travel. By the 10th century, Arabic was spoken by many different peoples from Spain to lands east of Persia, making communication easier. Adventurous Arab merchants reached Ceylon and Malaya by sea and even established a colony in Canton, China. Merchants and travelers also journeyed by caravan on the overland routes across Central Asia.
Islam continues to expand. During the long reign of the Abbasid Caliphs, Islam continues to gain converts. Its cultural influence was felt from Spain to India. From northern Africa, traders and conquerors carried Islamic south and west to the other parts of Africa. The Islamic faiths in the Arabic language united people from different backgrounds.
Islam allows other customs and beliefs. Muslim rulers defended, enforced, and spread the faith through laws laid down in the Quran. Islamic belief held that all Muslims allowed other believers in one God to practice their religions and customs and have their own communities.
Islam improves the lot of slaves. Slavery was common in most cultures of the time. In Muslims' lands, the lives of slaves improved. For the Quran called for humane treatment and permitted slaves to own property. Most slaves in Muslim world were household servants and helpers in the workshops. Some were well educated and became government officials, entertainers, or soldiers.
The Quran defines women's rules. The Quran also gives women more protection than traditional Arab law, although they did not have equality with men. The Quran forbid the Bedouin custom of killing unwanted infant girls. It also gave women certain share in the family inheritances and let them own property. A divorced wife could keep part of her dowry. The property her family gave her when she married, she entitled to support from her former husband and also could marry again. The Muslims made advances in medicine, using the medical knowledge of the ancient Greeks. Physicians in the Muslim lands became the best trained and most skillful doctors of all the time. Surgeons performed amputations and removed cancerous tissue. Muslim advances in the chemistry created new medicines and anesthetics that were used in performing operations.
Classic Muslim literature develops. Because the Quran was not allowed to be translated, educated people throughout the Muslim world learned Arabic. The Quran set the style for other Islamic literature, which include histories, geographies, philosophical, and scientific works, and above all, poetry. The caliphs, many of whom were skilled poets, encouraged writers.
Religion inspires art and architecture. In any Muslim city or village, the mosque, the Muslim place of worship, stood out from all the other buildings. The mosque was a constant reminder of the Islamic faith. In building mosques, tombs, palaces, and private homes, Muslim architects adopted features from other styles. They transformed the solid rounded arc of Romans to a delicate horseshoe, arc helped up by slender columns.
Muslim achievements. While the Muslim emphasized scientific theory rather than practical use, they nevertheless made advances in technology. Astronomers used lenses to improve telescopic observation, and engineers applied knowledge of geometry to building. Using new techniques of iron-making, Muslim craftsmen produced exceptionally fine swords. The Muslim invented the first mechanical clock. In agricultural technology, the Muslims improved on the Persian irrigation methods, built aqueducts, and spread the use of the Persian windmill to ventilate homes. Muslims architects constructed towers to catch the wind. The Muslims served as the channel for the preservation and spread of knowledge from the ancient Persia, Greece, and India. They laid the groundwork for the technological achievements of many later peoples.
The Arab Muslim had built a vast empire stretching from India to Spain. The empire was unified by a common language, a common faith, and a common culture. By the 11th century, however, the empire founded by the Arabs was losing its position of dominance in the Islamic world.
Invaders threatened the Muslim world. In the late 10th century, the Seljuk Turks, originally from Central Asia, entered Muslim lands converted to Islam. The Seljuks soon conquered much of Persia, Syria, and Palestine and took control of Asia Minor from Byzantines. In the 11th and 12th centuries, the Muslims lost Sicily to Norman knights and large parts of Spain to the Christian kingdoms.
Genghis Khan unites Mongol herders. In the 30th century, a new wave of invaders burst out of Central Asia. They were Mongols, nomadic tribes who for centuries had wandered the highlands and plains of Mongolia, fighting one another and seeking pasture for their herds. Early in the 30th century, a remarkable leader united the Mongol tribes. His name was Temujin, but he was known by the title Genghis Khan, which means ruler of the world.
The Mongols extend their conquest. With China under their control, the Mongols turned westward. The superb Mongol archers mounted on the fast-moving ponies poured across Asia into Persia, killing and burning to terrorize the people whose lands they invaded. The Mongols destroyed schools, libraries, mosques, and palaces and slaughtered thousands of Muslims.
Timur-Lenk leads new Mongol invasions. By the beginning of the 40th century, the Muslim world seemed more secure. In the Near East, the Muslims had recaptured the last Christian state founded by crusaders. The Mongols had this time converted to Islam. They remained in the Persia but could advance no farther westward.
The Ottoman Turks built a new empire. The collapse of the Tamerlane's empire left the way open for another group of empire builders, the Ottoman Turks. In the last part of the 13th century, the leaders of several Turkish tribes had been granted land in Asia Minor by the Seljuks. One warrior, Osman, established a small but stronger state. The Ottoman Empire reached its height in the 16th century with the conquest of Egypt, North Africa, Syria, and the Arabian coast. Although there was once again a unified Islamic empire, it lacked the vitality that had kept the Muslim world more advanced than the Europe during the Middle Ages. The Ottomans did not restore the cultural brilliance, the thriving trade, or the prosperity that the Muslim world had known under the Abbasid caliphs of Baghdad. traveling experience.
I am Justin Teresumeos.
And I am Renz Andrew V. Salazar, your traveling guide from PSL second year. We can do this para sa bayan at sa